As you can probably imagine, I get asked a lot of questions about the B2 First and the C1 Advanced writing papers. And a lot of these questions I don't like very much. Not because I don't like answering your questions, and not because I think they're stupid questions, but because they show me that you're not thinking about things in the right way. In fact, often the questions that I receive show me that you're thinking about the writing exam in completely the wrong way. Let's talk. Here is what we're going to do. I'm going to show you some questions I've received about the B2 First and the C1 Advanced writing exam. I'm going to answer these questions the best way that I possibly can, but while I'm doing that, I want you to think about why I don't really like these questions. Stick around, because at the end of the video, I will tell you why I don't like these questions, and boy oh boy, it's going to be really, really exciting. I cannot wait.
My teacher, who is a native English speaker, is a staunch believer that essays should have a 4-paragraph form. As a matter of fact, I did watch your video about how to write an essay, and your point was that an essay should be 5 paragraphs long. Now, my question is, what should I do?
Okay, so number one, being a strong believer that an essay should have a certain number of paragraphs is a bit silly. Seriously, if you want to write your C1 Advanced or your B2 First essay using 4 paragraphs, then go ahead. You could potentially do a really good job. You just need to make sure that you do everything that the question requires you to do. And yes, I know, when I give advice on how to write a B2 First essay, I always advise 5 paragraphs. But this is just to ensure that a student doesn't forget to discuss one of their prompts. If you need to discuss 3 prompts, then I think having an introduction and then 3 body paragraphs, 1 for each prompt, and then a conclusion is a good way of doing this. If you want to discuss more than 1 prompt in 1 paragraph, then that's absolutely fine. Just make sure you talk about all of them. For students taking the C1 Advanced Writing exam, I also suggest writing 5 paragraphs, and this is also to ensure that they include all of the necessary information. An introduction, paragraph 2 to introduce 1 prompt, paragraph 3 to introduce another prompt, paragraph 4 to compare and contrast the prompts and say which is the most important, and then a conclusion. Again, the most important thing is that you do everything that the question requires you to do. Another comment I receive all the time goes something like this.
Teacher, could I use a passive modal reporting verb in my first paragraph?
And my answer has always been, and will always be, yeah, sure, as long as you are using the structure for an appropriate reason. Are you using a grammar structure to communicate an idea appropriately? If you are, then go ahead and use it. Are you using a grammar structure only because you want to use that grammar structure? Well, if that's the case, then think very carefully. Let me show you what I mean. Here is an example of a passive modal reporting verb being used in a B2 First essay in a weird way. Why is this strange? Well, because we usually use a passive modal reporting verb to reduce the certainty of a claim. So, unless you are going to argue that being healthy isn't important, then a passive modal reporting verb is not a good structure to use here. The point is this: you don't need to ask me if it's okay to use a structure here or there. You can use a structure anywhere, as long as it's appropriate for the idea that you're trying to communicate.
Hello, Toby. Could I ask you a quick question, please? My English teacher says that it is significantly better for me to use on the other hand in the contrast paragraph. For example, on the other hand and not in spite of the above and stuff.
Okay, can you use on the other hand instead of in spite of the above to create a contrast between 2 body paragraphs? Yeah, of course you can. Why not? Is it significantly better to do so? No, they're both doing exactly the same thing, and provided that you are using them appropriately, then, well, they are as good as each other.
Also, she says that I should only use rhetorical questions only in the introduction and conclusion. What do you think?
Can you use rhetorical questions in your introduction and your conclusion? Well, again, it depends why you're using them. You could use a rhetorical question as a way of rephrasing the essay question in your introduction. You could use it as a topic sentence to introduce the topic of a paragraph. You could use it to emphasize the point being made in a paragraph. You could even use it in your conclusion to stress what your opinion is. A rhetorical question can have lots of different uses, and none of them are wrong or right. The important thing is that you're using them appropriately. If you are using a rhetorical question to fulfill a function that is appropriate to the task, then, well, a rhetorical question is absolutely fine. If, however, you're using a rhetorical question to grab the reader's attention at the beginning of a report, well then, you're probably using it inappropriately because a report doesn't require you to grab the reader's attention. Do you see what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with a rhetorical question. It's all about how you use it. So, here is why all of these wonderful people are approaching the writing exam in the wrong way. Let us use the example of the B2 first essay to make this point. There is no single B2 first essay. Instead, there are lots of possible essays that you could write. Each one is equally valid, and each one could score you really high marks. I suggest one possible way of doing it on this channel, but there are many other possible ways, and all of these ways could potentially be bloody great. The important thing is that you know exactly what Cambridge are looking for, and so you know why you're doing what you're doing. When writing a B2 first essay, you need to discuss 3 prompts. This means you'll need to compare and contrast ideas that might not be your own. You'll need to explain them, and you'll need to give examples. You will need to write an introduction and a conclusion, and you will need to present your opinion in your conclusion, and so you'll need to know how to do that. You'll need to make sure that your essay is easy to follow, and so you'll need to be able to use linking expressions appropriately, and you will need to ensure that you organize your essay into paragraphs, and that these paragraphs are connected logically, both within themselves and also between them. And of course, you will need to demonstrate that you have enough vocabulary related to the topic to deal with the topic, and you'll need to do all of this in a formal tone. Now, if you can do all of these things, then your essay is going to be really good. There are lots of different ways of achieving all of these things, and so don't stress about the number of paragraphs or where you're using your passive modal reporting verbs or where you're putting a rhetorical question. Just think to yourself, is what I'm doing appropriate for what I'm trying to do? And that is why I don't like questions like this, because they suggest that you think there is only one way of writing an essay. There's not. There are many ways of writing an essay. Just make sure that you do everything that the task requires. And with that, we're finished. If you like the video, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment down below. My name is Toby, and this was Smash English.